Hey, good morning, friends. I wanted to come on here and just share a little bit about what is spiritual direction and how that might be different than counseling. I have my MA in counseling. And so when I was seeing clients, during my internship year, it was definitely more diagnostic. So I have people who are coming in wanting to work through depression, or maybe they're not even aware that they are depressed, or they were struggling with bipolar or some personality disorder. So the spiritual direction is very much, it's not diagnostic. It is more about clients' walk with God and questions that they have or wrestlings that they have, even though it can include different areas in their life. It doesn't just have to be one particular area, but you look at it under the care, your life under the care and connection of God with a spiritual director. It's kind of funny because I think the term, there's some people who would even like to change the term from spiritual director to spiritual companion or spiritual friend, because most of the time spiritual directors, they're not directive. They are there with you to ask questions, to pay attention to what the Spirit might be doing. My favorite definition of spiritual direction belongs to my own spiritual director, Freddie Feliciano, and he says that spiritual direction begins when the realities of my life here on earth meet up with the realities of the gospel. And I love that. So a lot of times spiritual direction, when people come into my office, it usually is over relational issues. And, when you think about, how the Lord moves and works in us, you think about how if we're created in His image, that's the Father, Son, and Spirit, and how they are constantly relating and pouring out for the good of the other. And at the same time as they're pouring out, they're also being filled. And so we have a lot to learn about relationships and how we relate with one another by watching the Trinity. And so a couple of other things. Spiritual direction is really just showing up and being present with God and with whoever's sitting in front of you. It's helping people tell their sacred story, especially when it's mysterious and hard and there aren't clear answers. If you really struggle with giving advice, and you tend to give lots of advice, spiritual direction, you being a spiritual director could be pretty challenging at times, because it really taps into not going into formulaic answers, but waiting. And I think it's Thomas Merton, I think I wrote this down. Thomas Merton said that the essence of prayer is about waiting for a word that we cannot speak to ourselves. And that's really spiritual direction. I remember reading a book called Holy Listening by Margaret, I think her last name's Gunther. And she talks about spiritual director is really like a midwife. And she works with the mother. She establishes trust, one where no question is stupid and our personas are stripped away. He or she is gentle, strong, nurturing, challenging, present, wise, compassionate, and patient in a time of a lot of pain. So we need patient guides to hold our hands and remind us to breathe when it's difficult. There are no drugs to make the process of spiritual direction easier. So I think one thing that I love to do is when I'm meeting with people is to hold a bigger vision for their life than they have for themselves in that moment. And so for me, that's a little bit how I would define spiritual direction. Thanks. Next week, I think I'm going to talk about deconstruction and what is that and how do you walk with people through it.